The President, please be seated. The President, the court is now back in session. Court officer is now instructed to invite the civil party TCCP 261 as well as the accompanying assistant from TPO to accompany the civil party. The President, good morning, Madam Civil Party. Can you tell the court what your name is? Response, my name is Kung Siet. President, thank you, Ms. Kung Siet. When were you born, Madam Kung Siet? Response, I was born in 1952. The President, thank you. Where were you born? Response, I was born in Prasad village, Tropang Resai sub-district, Kampong Swai district, Kampong Thom province. The President, what is your current address? Now I am residing in Prasad village. Question, what is your occupation? Response, I am a farmer. The President, about your parents, what is your father and mother's name? Response, my father's name was Kuang and my mother's Sieng. President, about your husband, what is his name and how many children do you have? My husband is Long Pen and we have got 3 children. The President, thank you, Madam Kung Siet. In your status as a civil party, in your testimony, you are entitled to describe the suffering and the injury you have sustained, particularly the injury and suffering you sustained during the Democratic Cambodia period, pursuant to Rule 91 bis of the ECCC. The court will give the floor to the lead co-lawyer for the civil parties to proceed with their lines of questioning before any other parties. And for the civil party and the prosecutor will have one session to put the question to this civil party. You may proceed now.
Je vous remercie, Monsieur.
Thank you, Mr. President. Before giving the floor to my colleague T. Srina, I would like to make a motion. Since this session is 10 minutes shorter than the time that will be allotted to the defense this afternoon, we would like you to give us 10 additional minutes to enable my colleague and the prosecutor to complete the examination of this witness. And now I will give the floor to my colleague, T. Srina.
The President, the request is granted, and you may now proceed. T. Srina. Good morning, Mr. President, judges and parties to the proceeding. Good morning, Madame Consier. My name is T. Srina. I am the representative of the lead co-lawyer for the civil parties. I will be putting a few questions to you. Are you okay now? Can I proceed with my question? Response: I am fine, please. Question. My first question to you: when you joined the military, the Khmer Rouge military, when was it exactly, to your recollection, Madam? Response: I joined the military in 1975. Thank you. Question. When you joined the military, had you been married then? Response: no, I was single at that time, so I had not been married. Thank you. Question. So when you joined the military, which division were you subordinated to? Response: I was within division 450. Questions. Where were you stationed at the time? Response: at the beginning, they attached me to Risaikau Hospital. Thank you. Question. What was your role at the time at the Risaikau Hospital? Response: at that hospital, I was a member of the cook. At that times, I worked with the cook, and at the other times, it was only one time actually that I actually gave injection to the patient in the hospital. Question. Did you work there the whole time until the fall of the Khmer Rouge regimes, or you were deployed somewhere else? Response: I was working with the hospital until the fall of the Khmer Rouge regimes. Then I came back to my village and I did the farming. Questions. When they had to move you, where were you assigned to work? Response: at the times, they deployed me to work in the field somewhere in Bang Prajab, in around Turkok area. Question. Were that the last place that you were assigned to work, or you were deployed somewhere else beside that place? Response. I work in the field at the time, and then they redeployed me to work somewhere near Obaikom. Question. Could you describe the work conditions and the roles that you had to perform when you were redeployed to Obaikom? Response. When they transfer me from the military divisions, then I was attached to Unit 75, and I had to work in the rice field at that time, and my main role was to make sure that there were no rats coming to the rice field. At that time, the task was so difficult for me, and we did not have access to sufficient food to eat. There were a very small food ration indeed. Question. Did they send you out of Obaikom during that period? And if you were sent out, where was it, and when was it? And could you tell the court about the process of sending you out to other places? Response. They sent me to Kampong Chnang, and I was assigned to work in the Kampong Chnang airport construction site. Question. When was it? Response. It was in 1977. Thank you. Question. When they assigned you to work over there in 1977, were you the only person assigned to work over there, or they deployed a group of people to go there? Response. No, at the times they sent a group of people with 2 trucks there. When we got to Kampong Chnang, we were working in the Kampong Chnang airport construction site, and our task was to dig a canal. Question. You said that 2 trucks of people were sent to work over there in Kampong Chnang. So my follow-up question for you is that were all the workers sent to that site female, or there were a mixture of male and female in the 2 trucks loaded with workers? Response. At the times, there were only female workers. There was no a single male worker. Question. Did you know the reason why you were deployed to work in Kampong Chnang airport construction site? Response. I did not know the reason whatsoever why I was sent to work over there. I really had no knowledge of it. Question. I would like to now turn to your division head. When you were deployed to Kampong Chnang, did the entire division go to work in Kampong Chnang field, airport field, or there were only you and your groups who went there? Response. No, actually the division did not come with us. There were only the female regiment, Regiment 53, who came to Kampong Chnang. So, do you recall the name of the division head at the time? Response. Brother Suong was the division head at the time. A response. Question. Where is he now?
ចាដល់គេបញ្ជូនខ្ញុំមកនៅអូ3ក្អមមកតែខ្ញុំអត់ដឹងគាត់ទៅណាទេប៉ុន្តែខ្ញុំមកដល់នៅអូ3ក្អមខ្ញុំធ្វើការ
Response. I did not know where he had where he went after we left. So when there was a meeting of the regiment head at the time, they told me that we all was being suspected of something, and then our superiors were all arrested and taken to Tuls Laing. So we had to try to work, otherwise we would not be able to return home and meet our reunion with our family. Thank you, Madam. Now I would like to focus on the airport field in Kampong Chnang. So when you were sent to work in the airport field in Kampong Chnang, what was your role? What were you supposed to do over there? And you tell the court about the working condition of the Kampong Chnang airport construction site. What happened when you first arrived, and then what happened later on to your recollection? Response. When we were sent to Kampong Chnang airport field, we had to build canals, and then after that we were asked to carry earth and carry cement, and we had to learn how to sew some clothes as well. So the work condition was very, very tough at that time. Thank you. Question. Now, when you first arrived in Kampong Chnang airport field, were your biography taken at that time? Response. No, they did not take my biographies, but I had to work there for some times, and then they started to ask for my biography. Question. Did you know what they took the biography for? Response. That was to screen all of us. Now, for example, they wanted to know our family background, whether our parents were the former soldiers or not, and if they found out certainly they would take us somewhere else which we did not know. But I did not at that time tell them about my parents being the soldiers. Questions. Did they take biography on a regular basis, or that was only one time when they collected the biography from you? Response. They actually wanted to screen us to make sure that we are from good elements, and then they started to elicit answers from us. Question. My question to you is whether or not that was only one time when they took the biography from you, or they actually, took biography from you on a certain period of time or in intervals. Response. To my knowledge, for my personal biography, they conducted surveillance on my biography when I was from the place where I left, and then they wanted to know about our family backgrounds. Question. Now I would like to focus on the working condition. You said that when you first arrived, they asked you to dig canals and carry cement for the construction. So when you first arrived, you were asked to dig canals. What was the actual work condition then, and what were you supposed to do specifically? Response. When we first arrived, we were asked to dig canals. So when we arrived during the daytime, in the evening they sent us to dig the canals, but at that time we had to do it all together. We carried earth and soil and dig canal all together. Question. How about the working hours and the work shift? How many hours were you supposed to work, and what about the work requirement? Response. When we had to dig canals, we had to do it from the morning until late in the evening. We had to start work at 5 at dawn, and then we came back at 9 in the evening. Question. When you were digging the canals, was the work condition okay for you, acceptable, or it was very difficult? So what was the overall working condition when you were digging the canals at the time? Response. When we were digging the canals, it was not easy. We had to accomplish the target, and we had to all work together. Even those we got injured when we were doing that job, we dare not stop. We had to work, even those we could hardly hold the hoe anymore due to the overwork, but we dare not stop. We had to continue working. Question. So when you were assigned to dig canals, how about the accommodation? Did they provide the houses, shelter for you when you were digging the canals? Response. In that place, of course, the working condition was not like today. It was very difficult. At that time, we had access to water, but it was a very dirty water, and we did not have access to soap to clean our hands or our bodies, and when we were sleeping, we did not have mat to sleep on, and we did not have mosquito net to protect us from mosquito bites. So we had to sleep over there without anything, and then in the next morning we had to get up early to go to work. Question. In relation to hygiene, what was the overall hygiene condition surrounding the area you were working and living? Response. At that time, we did not actually care so much about this hygiene issue because we do not have access to soap. We did not have sufficient food to eat, and then when the food was prepared, it was left over there without covering anything or protecting it from flies and anything. Question: how about your body hygiene in general in that situation? Did were people, sting, for example, those who were working over there? Response: when I was living with the other female workers at that times, we did not have any body hygiene, when we did not actually have access to soap, so our clothes, smelled terribly at that time. Question: how about mosquitoes or other insects? Did you have problems with mosquito bites or other insect disturbances at the time?
Answer: of course, we were troubled by mosquitoes, but we didn't have any effective means to get rid of it. We use our piece of cloth, or sometimes we just chase them away with our hands. There were no mosquito nets. Question: I'd like now to move on to another topic, that is on cement carrying. Were you alone sent to carry cement, or was your team, the whole team, sent? And where was it? Answer: I was sent to carry cement in Rumia, and my entire unit was sent. In fact, it is my platoon, and the working condition there, that is carrying cement, was extremely difficult. The cement was very heavy, and as a result, I had a pain in my chest. And some women didn't have a regular period due to the heavy nature of carrying cement. Question: how many bags of cement that you had to carry per day? If you cannot recall the exact number of bags, maybe you can recall the number of trips that you had to carry, or from what time to what time? Answer: we worked at the same working hours as we work at digging canal, that is starting from 5 o'clock in the morning. We had a 15-minute break, and then we stopped at 11. We started again at 1, continued until 5. And there were many bags of cement that we carried each day, although I cannot recall the number of bags. It could be between 20 to 30 bags. Question: so on the total number of bags of cement, were there a larger numbers of bags of cement that your unit had to carry? And how many members in your platoon that had to carry those cement bags? Answer. There were about 30 of us who were sent to carry cement, and it lasted for quite some time, as we had to empty train wagons, and in fact it took us a fortnight to empty each train's trip, carrying those cement bags. Question. When you first initially assigned to carry cement and you found it very difficult that you had to bend your back due to the weight of the cement, how many kilos did a bag of cement contain? Answer. Each bag weighed 50 kilos. So that's not that light. And imagine we were women, so our back was bent from the heavy weight, but we had to try our best to work, to carry it. Although we had to crawl, although we had terrible back pain, we had to do it, as we were afraid that if we did not do it, we would be sent to be killed. Question. When you walk in that low posture, were you scolded by your unit supervisor, for instance? Or were you asked or were you allowed to rest first? What happened? Answer. When I worked with my lower band posture, the group chief actually blamed me why I was so weak, and while other women could carry cement rather fine. I told the chief that it's because of the heavy weight of the bag. Question. You said that it lasted 2 weeks when you worked carrying cement, and what were you assigned to do next? After we finished carrying cement bags from the train, I was returned to dig a canal at the airport worksite. Question. Can you compare the nature of work of digging canal and carrying cement? Which one was more intensive? Answer. Digging canal and carrying cement was both intensive. They were laborers, and it put a lot of strain on our physical body. For instance, sometimes when we had to dig the ground was hard and solid, and that was very difficult as well. Question. I'd like to ask you about the location where you dug a canal. How far was it from the airport worksite? Could you observe what was happening at the airport worksite? If so, could you describe the activities that you saw at the airport worksite? The canal that we dug was around the airport project worksite. We were all digging canals, including our group, other combatants or youth. We were part of the workforce working on the airfield. For example, we were digging canals while others were compressing the ground. There were many workers on site. Question. I'd like to ask you about the condition of workers at the work site. From your observation, could you tell us the physical condition of the workers on the work site, including yourself? What was the physical appearance? Answer. From my observation, all workers, including myself, regardless of our gender, we were not that healthy or fat. We were rather bony, and the only big thing that you could see was the head and the two kneecaps. We had to work even if the food was not enough, or even when we were sick. We had to try our best. Question. While you were working at the airport or work site, did you happen to see any nearby security officers? Answer. At the airfield work site, I did not see any security office, and I did not know about any existence of any security office there. Question. And when you traveled from the location that you dug a canal to the location where you were assigned to carry cement, did you happen to travel crossing an area where a security office was there, or where you were told that there was a security office? Answer. Well, I was sent to carry cement in Rumir, and when we returned, one of the drivers told us that there was a security center there. And when we were approaching the airfield worksite near the Pratit Pagoda, I looked through the east direction and I saw a truck, and women were ordered by a security guard to board that truck. The security guard was armed. That's what I saw. Question. I am unclear on the last statement you made. When you were told by a driver that there was a security office, and later on you saw arrest of women who were forced to board a truck, was the second location different from the location of the security office where you were told by the driver? Answer. The security office that I was told was near Rumih train station, but the second one was near the airport field, and there I saw women who were instructed to board the truck by a security armed guard. Question. When those women were ordered to board the track, was the person armed? Yes, he was carrying a weapon. Question. On that issue, when the women were ordered to board the track, were only women ordered to board the track, or were there any accompanied the children along with those women? Answer. I saw the mothers and the children. Some women had their children with them. Question. Did you know anything about those women? Did they make any mistakes, or what type of people they were? Answer. I did not know anything about that. I did not know about any offense that they made. I only saw what I just described to you. Question. I'd like to ask you now about another topic that is on the issue of meetings. Did you attend any meetings while you were working there? And if so, what was the content of those meetings? Answer. At the airport worksite, my group held meetings in a form of criticism and self-criticism, and we were incented to work harder, and there was no circumstance that we were allowed to rest. We had to work, and that was the gist of the meeting. Question. On the issue of criticism meetings, were you aware of what happened to any worker who was criticized for poor performance during those meetings? Answer. We were ordinary workers, and of course we were criticized by our chief or superiors, and we didn't dare to talk back to them, and we had to just keep on working harder. Question. My question to you is that did you hear or see that a person who was criticized in such a meeting, and later on I want to know what happened to that person? Answer. As I said, each of us was criticized, and we did not dare to respond to the criticism, and we had just to keep on working harder and harder, even if we were sick. Question. Here I am not asking about your case. I'd like to ask about any other of your peers or workers who were criticized during such meeting, and what happened to that individual later on. Answer. Even for other units meetings, I did not know because I didn't attend those meetings. I only knew about what happened within my unit, as we were not allowed to mingle among members of other units. So even if some workers were taken away to be killed, we could not know. We were not allowed to know. Question: I'd like to ask you in relation to some points you mentioned in your document, in your victim information form, and Mr. President, I'd like to refer to document with EN 00587138 in Khmer and in English 00587137 in French rather, and 0010693008 in English, says the lawyer. Madam Civil Party, in your Civil Party application, you stated that you were in shock and fear when you saw people were arrested in 2 or 3 trucks and were taken away. Did this happen at the Kampong Chnang airport worksite, or did it happen elsewhere? Answer: what I mentioned in my application form is that I did not witness the incident personally, but when I came to work at Old Back Home, I observed that sometimes there were 2 or 3 trucks which were fully covered, and I was told that those trucks were carrying prisoners. That's what I learned about the arrest. Question: I think I am unclear on this issue. You said in your response just now that you did not see those vehicles, but later on you said you saw some vehicles in a form of a convoy. President and Madam Civil Party, please observe the microphone. Civil Party. As I responded to your last question, while I was along the main road and I saw a convoy of 2 or 3 trucks which were fully covered, and I was in fear, and I was told that people were being arrested and carried away in those trucks, in those covered trucks. Question: and in relation to the same document, the same ERN, you also stated that you saw people being electrocuted for minor offenses. My question to you is the following. When did you witness that? Answer: I saw people being electrocuted while I were working at the airport worksite. We were queuing up to have our lunch, and a worker signaled me that they were electrocuting people under a mango tree, and when I looked in that direction, I saw 2 workers being electrocuted. Question: and did you learn all the reasons for them being electrocuted? Answer: no, I did not know about any reason. They were combatants and they were from a different unit. And that's what I saw while I was queuing for my meal. Question: does the name Ron ring a bell to you? Answer: while I was working under the supervision of Division 450, Ron was a cook there. Later on, Ron was arrested and imprisoned at Tulsline prison. At that time, I was not aware of the arrest. Later on, mate took me to Tulsline prison, and I was told that that was a photo of Ron, who was in the same unit and who were arrested and sent to Tulsline. Question: so you saw the photo in Tulsline. Was it before or after the collapse of the Khmer Rouge regime? Answer: Ron was in Division 450 under the Khmer Rouge regime. Ron was a cook. And Ron was a soldier, in fact. I was a civilian working in the rice field. And Ron disappeared. And only later on, while I came to this tribunal, mate told me about Ron photo at Tulsline, and that Ron was arrested and detained at Tulsline prison. Question: I'd like now to return once again to the airport work site. Were you allowed to speak to your peer workers? Were you allowed to walk to meet other workers in other units? Answer: at that time, we could only speak to our peer workers within our unit, but we did not dare to speak to other workers in another unit. Even if one was related by blood as a brother or sister, they did not dare to speak to one another if they were in different units. Questioned: and why you could not go and talk to other workers in the other units? Answer: that was the regulation. We were not allowed to move freely. We were not allowed to communicate with others, and if we violated the regulation, we would be under or subject to disciplinary action, be arrested and imprisoned. We only stick to our routine to have a bath, to eat, to sleep, and to work. Question: I'd like now to ask about your family members. Were you allowed to visit your parents? Were you living with your parents? Answer: since 1975, when I joined the army, until 1976 or 1977, I was not allowed to go and visit my parents. They instructed me to keep on working. I wept because I miss my parents. And only after the collapse of the Khmer Rouge regime, and that when the Vietnamese troops arrived and I fled onto the mountain, I met my parents. Council, thank you, Madam Civil Party, for your detailed response, and I'd like to cede the floor to my learned International Council. President, thank you. The floor is now given to the lead co-lawyer for civil parties. You may proceed, Council.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning. To your honors, good morning, Council. Good morning to you, Ms. Kung Sik. I just have a few questions building on what my colleague has touched upon this morning with you. I would like to go back to when you first joined Division 450. You said that that was in 1975. Can you tell us an approximate date in 1975 that you joined Division 450?
I cannot tell you that, as I cannot recall the date. I only know that it happened in 1975.
Did you begin working at Rusay KO Hospital shortly after the fall of Phnom Penh to the Khmer Rouge?
I worked at the Riseka Hospital, that is after the Khmer Rouge troops occupied Phnom Penh, and that hospital belongs to Division 450.
And was the brother Song, who you mentioned earlier, the head of Division 450 at the time that you were working at Rusay KO Hospital?
Soong, that I mentioned, did not go to Riseka Hospital. However, Soong was overall in charge, and there was a supervisor on site at the hospital.
Can you tell us the name of that supervisor?
The hospital supervisor was Khom, a female, and another one was a man, and there was another person, Wood. These three were in charge of the hospital.
And can you tell us what happened to Brother Suong?
Person, I was away from him at that time. I only knew that he was the head of Division 450, but later on I did not know where he was taken to.
You mentioned a little earlier a meeting of regiment heads in Division 450. Can you tell us when that meeting of regiment heads took place?
No, I never attended the division meeting.
But did you learn of a meeting of regiment heads that you mentioned a little bit earlier this morning?
Yes, I attended the regiment meeting, and during that meeting, they told me to work harder because other superior were taken. I mean, those who were the leaders in the division had been arrested. That's why we in the regiment we had to try to work hard in order to avoid being arrested, because they said that if the superiors were arrested, then the followers were also alleged to be involved with the leader. So in order to avoid being arrested, we had to work harder.
And when did that meeting take place that they told you this?
As for the precise date, I do not recall, but it was during the time when I was attached to Obaik Om, so at that time it was sometime in 1977.
And was one of the leadership that they said was arrested Brother Song?
As for the leaders, I mean, not Brother Suong arrested, but at that time the people from the southwest zone, they carried out the arrest. But my regiment had told me that.
Madam Civil Party, on our case file, we have document number E318/1892, and this is at Khmer 000-12693, English 00769596, and French 00763449, and S21 confession. The title page, which is the pages that I just referenced, states S21 confession of Cheanon alias Suong. This confession was written by him before being tortured. To the best of your knowledge, is Cheanon alias Suong the Brother Suong that you are referring to?
As for his arrest and imprisonment, I had no knowledge of. I only knew about Brother Suong from my regiment head when I was working at Obaik Om.
Do you know why you were transferred from working at Rusay KO Hospital to Ubakom?
They transfer me from Rusaikau Hospital to Obaik Om because, as I told you earlier, that the division had been arrested, so they had to transfer us to Obaik Om so that they could screen us further.
Did you see being transferred to Ubekom as a form of punishment?
Yes, it was a form of punishment. They subjected us to harder working condition. We had to work in the rice paddy from the early morning until late in the evening, and they did not give us sufficient food to eat. And then we had to work at night, and we had to sleep along the dike of the rice paddy in order to prevent the rat from destroying the crops.
In your supplemental application to your civil party statement D22/2509A at English ERN 01069308, French 00587137, Khmer 00587138, you state that you were sent to the airport from Obakon, quote, because I was related to the military soldiers in Division 450 who had been arrested and detained at Tuol Sleng, close quote. My question is that correct that you attribute the reason that you were sent to work at the Kampong Chhnang airport to the fact that you were associated with Division 450 soldiers who had been arrested?
They sent me to Obaik-om because I had some relations with Division 450. So it was a form of punishment. I had to refashion myself in that place. And then I was moved to the airport. It was the same form of punishment.
Madam Civil Party, I just have a few more questions for you. You state, again, in your supplemental application, D22/2509A, that you worked at the airport, quote, for about half a year before I was sent back to Albakam, close quote. Is that correct that you worked at the airport for about 6 months?
Yes, that is correct. I worked at the airport in Kampong Chhnang for about 6 months, and then they transferred me back to Obaik-om.
And the work that you described earlier that you did at the airport, did you choose to do that work, or were you told what work you would do?
No, I dare not, choose to do what I wanted to do. It was under total instruction.
Can you estimate how many people you saw working at the airport worksite?
According to what I saw in that work site, actually it was a very huge work site, and there were up to thousands of workers. There were combatants and other workers, so many people working in this airport work site.
And were all of the workers there from Division 450 to the best of your knowledge, or were they from other divisions as well?
No, they were not only confined to Division 450. There were many other combatants from other divisions, and I did not know where they were all coming from at that times, but there were a crowd of people working at the site.
Thank you, Madam Civil Party. Thank you, Mr. President. I see my time is up.
The President, thank you. Now the time is appropriate for lunch break. The court will be adjourned from now until 1:30 this afternoon. Court officer is instructed to facilitate the civil parties during the break and have her back in this courtroom together with her accompanying attendant from TPO to this courtroom. And as for security guard, you are now instructed to bring Mr. Kilsumpon to the holding cell downstairs and have him back to this courtroom before 1:30 this afternoon.